Hi everyone, Greg Heilman back with the Sound on Stage in our, new series called The Sound and Beyond, because we're still down here in Ashland, Oregon, attending the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the indoor season, as opposed to the outdoor season, which we'll try to get to later this summer. I'm joined by Kaytlin McIntyre, who is the Director of Repertory Producing here at OSF. Some of you may know Kaytlin from her role at Seattle Rep, where she was artistic producer, casting director, new play development, and a creative producer for their season up there. Wearer of many hats.
Yes.
And I think we spoke to you, Kaytlin, a few years ago during the pandemic in your role as casting overseer, where we all got jealous about how you were able to travel to different places and see different people and cast them. So, first of all, thank you for taking some time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
How's it been going here since you started? I guess, when officially did you start?
Yeah, what day is today? Tuesday? So
Tuesday.
This is my third week. Is that true? Yes, I believe this is my third week on the job. It's either my third or fourth. It's a blur. Yeah, I'm still very new, and I am coming into a role that Danya K. Washington is leaving, and so there's this period of about 8 weeks where Danya is here and I'm here, and so I'm getting trained up into all of the producing systems, all of the machine that is Oregon Shakespeare Festival, learning about the rotating rep. And we are also, we just announced the 2025 season today and are very deep into planning for 2025, both in terms of the creative teams and also casting. So it is definitely full on in the deep end, and just trying to keep my chin above water. But there's like all sorts of different metaphors. Drinking from the fire hose,
Sure.
Chin above water, shot out of a cannon. That one's a good one.
In the treadmill at a million miles an hour?
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, it is, Oregon Shakespeare Festival has a very unique producing model in doing a true rotating repertory theater, of having a company of actors. There's a lot of companies throughout the U.S. that have rep in them, as my last job did, but they were not a rotating rep in terms of the sort of initial understanding of what a repertory theater was.
I think they used to be. I believe Seattle
Rep used to have a company of actors. It used to, rotate shows on stage, but it hasn't for a very long time.
Yeah.
And most rep companies throughout the U.S. haven't for a very long time.
Yeah.
But just by virtue of being in this somewhat remote area of Oregon in a small town, it is the producing model that makes the most sense here. It doesn't make sense to bring people out for just one show.
That's a good point. And its repertory is steeped in the tradition of OSF, or OSF is steeped in the tradition of repertory. Either way, it's a big part of it. And I remember I noticed that last year when I would see 3 shows and I'd see the same actor in 3 shows. Yeah. So it's something that was unique to me. And in my interview with Rosa a little while ago, she mentioned that you guys are going, both feet in next season with repertory that I think, is it 9 of the shows are going to have some sort of repertory component to them?
Yeah, it's a 9-show season, and all of them will be in rep with the other shows. So you're going to, every single show, actors will be either in other shows, understudying other shows. We are really embracing that model again and looking for actors who want to do more than one production. There's always going to be a few exceptions, but I think overall Tim's real vision for the theater is to return to company and return to rotating rep.
And does that help with, so coming out of COVID, I know a lot of theaters, especially I shouldn't even say especially the professional side, community theaters are doing it as well with almost making understudies part of a requirement of every show, because you never know when somebody's going to get sick and all of that. How does the repertory and understudy programs intersect, or do they?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Oregon Shakespeare Festival actually was understudying in a way before the pandemic that a lot of other theaters weren't. So I think in many ways OSF was leading the way in understudies, but because each of these shows runs anywhere from 3 to 6 months, the likelihood that you are going to have an understudy go on is exponentially higher than when you are doing a show that just has a three-week run.
Yeah.
So it's actually absolutely necessary to the business model here to have understudies. Understudies are both people who are in other shows, have primary roles in other shows that understudy for a different production. There are also some people who are on understudy only contracts, so they are here only understudying. Sometimes that's just for one show, sometimes that's for multiple shows. So it's a little bit of a mix, and that's just part of the extremely complicated matrix of how it all works and what shares with what and how somebody could understudy this show but won't be available to understudy this other show because they have performances at the same time. All of that.
Yeah. I imagine one of those bulletin boards with all the little thumbtacks.
I know. It's fascinating. Like I did casting for 10 years at Seattle Rep, and we had very complicated projects, but the project was the project. Right. And so thinking across the season and thinking about the experience of the audience of being able to come and, like you said, see somebody in this show and maybe they are like a romantic lead in this show. And then you get to see them in this like comedic smaller role in another show. And that like just the how exciting that is to the OSF audience to get to see people do different things and how dedicated and passionate they feel about the company of actors is really inspiring and something I haven't really seen before. There's a little bit of that, I would say, in Seattle in terms of like some of the beloved Seattle favorites, and like people are excited to come see Bob Wright do this thing in this show, or come see Timothy Pagay, or Amy Thone, like, so there's a little bit of that just by virtue of Seattle being a small but mighty theater community. But here it's like it's just on a different level.
Yeah, it's compressed. It's because it's all happening at the same time. One thing I want to talk to you about, especially with your experience with new works, is the OSF philosophy on new works and balancing those with staged existing productions. I mean, it's obviously important to OSF.
Yeah, well, so a couple things to say about that is that, it's the Oregon Shakespeare Theater. Only about a third of the shows in any given season at this point are Shakespeare. So next season, there's 3 Shakespeare productions. And then there are a few there's like an adaptation of Shakespeare with Fat Hand. There's an adaptation of the Cervantes novel. So there's some adaptations of classics, but I think sometimes people assume that, you're coming to OSF, all you're going to see is Shakespeare. And that's not true anymore. And I would say that so for instance, next year, probably the shows that will take the most sort of that will have the most new pages, that will have the most script changes are the Shakespeares. Because every time we do a Shakespeare, there's a new cut of that. The director and the dramaturg are deciding what they are going to include. It's rare that productions include every single line from the first folio, right? So there's a whole sort of new play development process with those, and occasionally they even will go as far as to like need workshops to figure out, okay, what are we including and what are we not including?
Yeah.
For instance, there's already been discussions about the Upstart Crow Collective, who is working on Julius Caesar,
which is Rosa's
company, doing a workshop of Julius Caesar to really figure out exactly what they want to do. So I found that approach really fascinating, that thinking about every Shakespeare as a new play.
Yeah.
And I think like right now there's a moment of rebuilding. So you're like hiring a literary department right now. And so all of that will be developing more and more in terms of like commissioning programs and in terms of any other new play development activity will be built out over the next couple of years. But I know that it continues to be a value and a priority of OSF. Yeah.
Well, I was talking to Rosa about that balance that we talked to artistic directors about, putting on shows that have name recognition that people are going to come for. And obviously, OSF's a little bit. It is a destination, so it's got some cachet on its own. But there's always the balance there between familiar shows that people are going to come to, and then whether it's either new works or some more obscure shows that maybe have a poignant message or something that's timely. And it sounds like that OSF is I guess they seem to walk that balance pretty well. Between the two, and it sounds like with the new works philosophy, that's going to continue. But one thing I've also noticed is that, and she and I talked about I guess a criticism that some people have that Oregon Shakespeare is getting away from Shakespeare, which I dispute, because there's a lot of shows that aren't at face value Shakespeare, but there's some tendrils and tentacles out into Shakespeare. So I don't know in theater if you can ever not be Shakespeare adjacent. It seems like everything's got a tie to it. But, I mean, is that what you've seen as far as shows? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think that there's an effort to broaden what the idea of classic means. So sometimes I will also say like OSF does classic work. So that includes Shakespeare, but also, for instance, August Wilson's Jitney. August Wilson is a classic American author.
Sure.
It's obviously far more contemporary, recent than Shakespeare, but embracing different perspectives, right? I think that while Shakespeare is very open to interpretation, and different directors can come in, as I was saying, and treat it like a new play and do many things, the source writer continues to be William Shakespeare, a white man who lived in the 1500s in London. There's only so much you can kind of represent with Shakespeare, and it's amazing how universal those plays continue to be. And yet there has to be room for other perspectives, other points of view.
Sure.
In theater.
Makes sense. So what are you most excited about seeing here this season?
In the 2024 season?
The current season.
Okay, yes. Sometimes I'm already like, wow,
I've already moved on to the next season.
Remembering the year is very challenging. I am very excited about the two shows in the Elizabethan Theater. They're in tech right now, and I've gotten to poke my head in and watch them, and they're just beautiful. They're just stunning productions, and it's really wonderful to see those spaces activated. It feels like now the engines are running on all cylinders. So
it doesn't get real until the outside.
I mean, it kind of doesn't. It feels like it's like, okay, now we've arrived. Now it's all happening. So I'm really excited for those. I also, later this summer, Barzin, who is a wonderful actor who's been in the company many years here, but also has a strong Seattle ties. He went to the University of Washington. He has a solo show here later this summer that I am really, really excited to see. It's something that he started developing at the University of Washington in the MFA program. And so he is remounting it many years later. I won't say how many years later, but for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I've just found the solo shows really unexpected and delightful, and I'm really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, there is that tie between Seattle and OSF that seems really, and even the Seattle reps specifically, there seems to be a lot of exchanging of shows and people and things like that.
Yes.
Is it just, in your estimation, is it largely geography? Is there another aspect that there's something that links the two of them together?
I think that it's geography. I think there's also a sort of taste and style and sort of, I think like I've always thought of Oregon Shakespeare Festival as a place where you can see work of great integrity that has a lot of sort of substantial meat to it, even when it's a comedy, even when it's like a fun romp, that there's a lot there. And I think that was something that specifically Seattle Rep was committed to as well, that it was did classics, straight plays, a lot. It was rare that Seattle Rep did a show that did not have some sort of kind of thematic weight to it. So I think that there was also an exchange of ideas, and I would say like some. Again, it's partially geography, but also some just like similar taste in artists, and so there's like a ton of exchange of artists. So many people here have also worked at Seattle Rep, or sometimes we would get introduced to them by virtue of doing a co-production together, and so there is a major kind of back and forth, which is very exciting.
And it's a destination for people, but it's also a destination for actors. I know a number of actors on the community theater side whose life goal is to come down here and work at OSF.
Yeah.
And when you come down here and you see shows, it seems abstract when you think about it. You're in Seattle, you have all these, and then to drive down to Ashland, Oregon, of all places. But no, when you do, and you see the three main theaters and the things they can do with each of them, it is a machine. Like you said.
Or like somebody described it to me as theater Disneyland, which was just a great way to think about it. That it is like again, it's because it is this massive institution in this small town in Oregon. There's really the culture of this town feels like it doesn't revolve around OSF. There's many things down here, but it is OSF is such a key part of the town, and there's like some cute stores that have like Shakespeare puns is the name of the store, so it feels almost sometimes a little bit like Leavenworth, the Bavarian town in Washington, but it's in Oregon and it's all formatted around Shakespeare. There's like 3 British pubs, which isn't normal in a small town of 20,000 people.
Yeah, it does seem symbiotic in a way that that the town is it's just they've all become one institution. But yeah, there is, and you can tell the area is growing. You look at the exits on the interstate that are on the other sides of it, and it's definitely something that's I would imagine. Well, I would hope it's growing in popularity, but it does seem to be.
Yeah.
I hear more and more people every year talk about making the trek down 1 or 2 times a year to come down and see shows, because you can see X amount of shows in 1 week. I'm going to see 3 shows in 2 days.
I mean, the other misconception that even I, as somebody who worked in theater, would fall into is the idea that OSF just runs in the summer. But the season starts in March and it runs through October, which is about the length of the season at Seattle Rep or any other sort of regional theater. So it is not just a concentrated summer festival. And again, it's like the 2 misconceptions about Oregon Shakespeare Festival are in the title Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So that's part of the obstacle. But I think it's important for people to know that they don't have to wait until July to come. Yeah.
Well, because I'm catching 3 of the indoor shows over the next couple of days, and my intention is to come down. It does get warm during the summer.
It does get warm, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was July last year that I was here, and it was warm.
Yeah.
But it goes through September, October, and from what I understand, nights get pretty cool.
Yeah.
In that outdoor theater.
Yes, no, you should bring a blanket.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's great news that you guys have announced your next season. So hopefully that's another, as we get out of COVID year after year, more and more people, I know theaters in Seattle are seeing that gradual return to attendance.
Yeah.
It may not be quite pre-COVID yet, but and people, there it's. Because I don't know, do you do subscriptions or anything here? Probably. Oh, you do?
Yeah, because so often people come and see more than one show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because
so
I know
you can become a member.
Okay. Because in Seattle, subscriptions I think have gone down because people are is less willing to commit because of all the uncertainty with everything.
Yeah.
But that's starting to come back a little bit. So hopefully everybody's theaters are becoming a little more stable. I know we've lost a few up in Seattle as a result of financial issues, but hoping we can get up beyond that. And all be successful.
Yeah, well, and it's a challenge here because it's not, as you said, it's, in a city, going to see a play is a relatively small risk. Like you're going out for 2 to 3 hours. And so if, you don't like the show for whatever reason, then it's like, oh, okay, well, a little bit of money, a little bit of, of my time lost. Whereas coming to Ashland, Oregon, it's a much bigger commitment.
Yeah.
You're more often than not, you're going to be taking a trip. You're going to be booking a hotel. You're going to be booking a flight, or you're going to be driving. Convincing people that it's back up, it's running, we are back is it's going to take more time to start to get people back in the habit of making OSF a priority of their summer plans.
Well, I would recommend it. For anybody that's watching this, you have to come down and see it. Just because it's more than what you think it is when you get down here, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
So, Kaytlin McIntyre, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new role here as Director of Repertory Producing.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And once again, I'm Greg Heilman with The Sound on Stage. This has been The Sound and Beyond. I'm going to see if that sticks.
New tagline.
And until next time, I appreciate you all watching and following us. Until next time, I will see you at the stage door.